My name is Paul Hebert. I'm on the Wicked Tuna show for 11 years. I own the boat Wicked Tuna, and I came down to Conley GM's.
What happens when the ocean is your entire identity? Then one mistake nearly sinks it all. Paul Hebert wasn't just a fisherman. He was a legend in the making, a kid pulling in 1,000-pound tuna before he could drive, raised by salt water and storms. On screen, Paul Hebert is a familiar face. A boisterous, passionate captain aboard the FV Wicked Tuna on Wicked Tuna, the National Geographic reality show about bluefin tuna fishing. For over a decade, viewers have seen him shouting triumphantly over giant catches, battling harsh waves, and living the high seas drama. But beyond the camera's lens lies a far more complicated tale, one of deep personal loss, public scandal, and quiet resilience. This is the story not of a celebrity fisherman, but of a man who has endured storms both at sea and within himself. Paul Hebert was born on February 15, 1965 in Marshfield, Massachusetts, into a family defined by fishing, specifically the pursuit of the mighty bluefin tuna. Moving to Gloucester, Paul grew up in a place he later called the School of Fishermen's Souls, where the sea wasn't something you learned, it was something you lived. His father, Donald Hebert, was a legend in the industry, a man who once reportedly caught over 100 bluefin in a single year. More than just a fisherman, Donald instilled a philosophy into his children. No one beats the ocean, but if you learn to live with it, you can outlast others. Paul's initiation into this world came early. At just 8 years old, he caught his first tuna, over 100 pounds, using a handline. That moment wasn't just about skill, it was a rite of passage. Paul would later describe it as being similar to how a farmer's child instinctively knows the land. "I knew the smell of tuna before I could swim," he once said. Among 6 fishing brothers, it was Paul who eventually brought that family legacy to national television. Before 2012, he was just another hard-working commercial fisherman, taking jobs up and down the Atlantic coast, enduring grueling conditions, long nights, and dangerous seas. He recounted once, "I slept in air-conditioned engine rooms covered in oil, ate cold sandwiches, fought people and fish bigger than myself." In 2012, Paul joined Wicked Tuna, a reality series tracking commercial tuna fishing in the North Atlantic. At first, he served as a crew member on the FVTuna.com, captained by his friend Dave Carraro. But Paul's strong personality and frequent disagreements with Dave eventually pushed him to forge his own path. Starting with Season 2, Paul became the captain of his own vessels. FV Bounty Hunter, Miss Samka, and later FV Kellyanne. But it wasn't until Season 5 that he captained the FV Wicked Tuna, the boat that would become synonymous with his name. Paul's life changed dramatically in 2012 when he joined the inaugural season of Wicked Tuna. At first, he played a supporting role aboard the FITuna.com under Captain Dave Carraro. But Paul's fiery personality, on-the-fly intuition, and refusal to be a background character quickly caused friction. After just one season, he broke out to captain his own boats. First the FV Bounty Hunter, then Miss Samka, then Kellyanne, and ultimately the Wicked Tuna, the vessel that would come to define him. While other captains came and went, Paul became one of the show's longest-running and most beloved figures. He didn't just fish, he bared his soul on screen. With each episode, fans saw his temper, his humor, his frustration, and his joy. He was unpolished but real, not acting for the camera but living as he always had. His signature cries, "We got a giant," and boom, became part of the show's DNA. He didn't need to play a character because he was already larger than life. But fame brought attention, and attention brought consequences. In 2015, Paul Hebert found himself at the center of a federal fraud scandal that threatened not just his career but his reputation and freedom. Years earlier, in 2009, while living in Vermont, Paul had applied for Social Security and Medicaid benefits, claiming total disability. He stated under oath that he could not work, drive, or lift heavy objects, and that he had no income or assets. Though initially denied, he was later approved and began receiving monthly government payments. However, during this period, Paul was very much active, fishing professionally and appearing on national television. This contradiction drew scrutiny. When Wicked Tuna aired, it became impossible to hide. The Department of Justice indicted Paul in July 2015 on 4 counts, including Social Security fraud, Medicaid fraud, and making false statements. Though the potential sentence could have included prison time and hundreds of thousands in fines, Paul ultimately reached a plea deal. In 2016, he was sentenced to 4 years of probation, ordered to repay over $53,000 and fined $5,000. While he avoided jail, the fallout was devastating. Fans were divided. Some condemned him for exploiting programs meant for the truly disabled, while others defended him, noting that he had repaid what was owed and accepted the consequences. The legal storm marked the beginning of Paul's transformation. Though he continued filming for Wicked Tuna, his screen time diminished, and his once boisterous personality began to shift. That shift deepened further with the death of his father, Donald Hebert, in the pandemic-choked winter of 2020 to 2021. Donald passed away in a nursing home during the height of COVID-19 while Paul was away filming Wicked Tuna: Outer Banks. Due to pandemic restrictions, Paul was unable to visit or say goodbye. The news of his father's death reached him at sea, and in a rare, vulnerable admission on Instagram Live, Paul recounted falling to his knees on the deck, numb and shattered. His father had been more than a parent. He was Paul's compass, mentor, and co-captain in life. The loss left Paul adrift emotionally. He went silent on social media, missed fan events, and became increasingly introspective. When he did return online, it was with a stark black and white photo of himself alone at the bow of his boat in thick fog, captioned simply, "Still fishing, Dad." That single image spoke more than words ever could. A tribute, a farewell, and a promise to continue, even in sorrow. Despite the fame, success didn't come overnight. In Season 5, he placed second with over $100,000 in tuna earnings, and again in Season 6. It wasn't until Season 10, after nearly a decade on the show, that Paul claimed first place. The late victory felt like long-deserved recognition for a man who had once been almost cut from the show. What set Paul apart wasn't just his skill, but his authenticity. He was raw, emotional, and completely unfiltered. Fans saw his real sweat, real frustration, and real joy. Not a character, but a man living out his lifelong trade. To many, Paul was the heart of Wicked Tuna. While Paul was captivating audiences on television, a dark truth was unraveling behind the scenes. In 2009, before his TV fame, Paul had applied for Social Security and Medicaid benefits in Vermont. Claiming he was severely disabled and incapable of work, he declared no income, no assets, and stated he lived alone. Though initially denied, his appeal succeeded in 2010, and he began receiving monthly disability benefits and medical assistance. Over 3 years, Paul collected more than $45,000 in combined aid. However, during that same period, he was actively working as a fisherman, and from 2012, appearing prominently on Wicked Tuna. The disconnect between his disability claims and his visible labor on national television raised alarms. By 2015, federal investigators had gathered enough evidence, and Paul was indicted on 4 counts of fraud, including making false statements and failing to report income. Facing possible prison time and hundreds of thousands in fines, Paul eventually agreed to a plea deal. In 2016, he was sentenced to probation, fined $5,000, and ordered to repay $53,660 in benefits, which he had voluntarily returned prior to sentencing. Public reaction was divided. Some fans were outraged, calling him a fraud who stole from programs meant for the truly needy. Others were more forgiving, pointing to his repayment and suggesting that everyone deserves a second chance. For Paul, the court decision marked a low point. His reputation tarnished, his personal life scrutinized, and his screen presence reduced during the following Wicked Tuna season. Just as he was emerging from his legal battle, Paul suffered an even deeper blow: the loss of his father, Donald Hebert. Sometime between late 2020 and early 2021, amid the COVID-19 pandemic, Donald passed away in a nursing home, alone, without Paul by his side. Paul, who was filming in another state under strict COVID protocols, couldn't return in time. On Instagram Live, Paul broke down as he described the moment he learned of his father's death while at sea. "I collapsed on the deck," he said. "I've never felt the sea so cold." Donald's passing wasn't just personal grief. It was the end of an era. For fans of Wicked Tuna, the Heberts had symbolized a generational bond forged at sea. Without Donald, Paul's character visibly changed. He became quieter, more reflective. His once thunderous personality softened. Paul disappeared from social media for months. When he returned, it was only with a black and white image of himself on the boat, fog surrounding him. The caption read simply, "Still fishing, Dad." In early 2022, another storm hit. This one born of rumor. A small blog falsely reported that Paul Hebert had died of a heart attack at sea. The news, though entirely unverified, quickly spread across Reddit, Facebook, and even YouTube. Within hours, fans were mourning his loss, sharing tribute videos and sending condolences. It took a day for the Wicked Tuna production team to confirm that Paul was in fact alive and actively filming the next season. But the damage had been done. Paul later shared a video saying, "It's crazy to open your phone and see people think you're dead. I know I've made mistakes, let people down, but no one deserves to be declared dead while they're still breathing." In the wake of the false death report, Paul shut down his personal Facebook and stopped engaging directly with fans. He continued posting updates from his official charter service page, but gone were the personal reflections and jokes that once filled his feed. The sea had become his only outlet. Paul Hebert has never married. He has no children. Both his parents are now gone. Of his 5 brothers, only Bruce still sails with him on Wicked Tuna. He lives alone in a small home near the docks of Gloucester, Massachusetts. In a response to a fan comment online, Paul once wrote, "I have the ocean, the boat, the wind, but no one waits for me at the harbor." That one line has since echoed among his supporters, capturing the quiet sorrow of a man who gave his life to the sea and lost nearly everything else in the process. Since 2022, he has rarely attended fan events, declined special episode invitations, and stopped doing live streams. While he has never publicly discussed depression, the signs are there. Less speaking, fewer outbursts, minimal interaction. He works, fishes, sails, but seems emotionally distant, almost like a ghost of the vibrant captain fans once knew. Despite it all, legal battles, personal losses, false death rumors, Paul Hebert remains on Wicked Tuna. As of 2025 at age 60, he continues captaining the FV Wicked Tuna, appearing in Season 14 and in Wicked Tuna Outer Banks. Though his presence is less flamboyant, it's steady, as constant as the tides. His estimated net worth is between $400,000 and $500,000, drawn from the show, tuna earnings, and his active charter business, which he promotes on social media. He has no plans to retire. When asked, he said simply, "I'll sail until I can't." That answer, while brief, says everything. For Paul, the sea is not a job. It's a sanctuary. The last place that makes sense. A place where he doesn't need to answer to anyone. Though he's never won a major award, Paul has something rare. A loyal base of fans who continue to support him. Under every photo of a fresh tuna catch, hundreds of comments still pour in. "Still the best, Paul. You're the heart of this show." By this time, the Paul Hebert fans once knew. Loud, laughing, fiery, had evolved into someone quieter, more measured, and deeply private. His social media posts became limited to fishing updates, photos of large tuna, notes on the weather, charts of depth and temperature. There were no jokes, no personal anecdotes, no family photos. Even his appearances on the show became steadier, less dramatic. He still hauled in giants, still captained the FV Wicked Tuna with skill, but the sparkle of earlier seasons was muted. Paul began declining invitations to special episodes and reunion interviews, asking producers to use archived footage rather than putting him on camera to talk about emotions he no longer wanted to publicly explore. His withdrawal wasn't out of arrogance or bitterness, but quiet grief. Having lost his father, endured scandal, and faced false rumors of death, Paul seemed to be simplifying his life to its core essence: the boat, the sea, the fish. Now in his 60s, Paul Hebert continues to sail, work, and live by the tides. He has never married, has no children, and lives alone near the Gloucester docks. While his brothers are mostly out of the spotlight, though one Bruce sails with him on occasion, Paul's personal life remains a mystery. In a rare comment to a fan asking about loneliness, Paul wrote, "I have the ocean, the boat, the wind, but no one waits for me at the harbor." That line, poetic and heart-wrenching, became widely shared among fans who saw in it a deeper sadness, a man slowly fading into the elements he once commanded. Still, Paul doesn't ask for sympathy. He doesn't present himself as a victim. He merely continues. He fishes. He fixes his boat. He teaches younger fishermen. He promotes his charter service, Wicked Tuna Charters, with professionalism and consistency, though rarely with the playful energy he once had. Despite everything, the fame, the fall, the loss, Paul Hebert remains one of the last enduring captains of Wicked Tuna. In a world where reality TV often burns out its stars quickly, his longevity speaks volumes. Not because he's flawless, but because he is real. He has made mistakes, suffered, grown, and survived. His net worth may not be enormous, estimated between $400,000 to $500,000, but his wealth lies in something deeper: legacy, experience, and the simple fact that he is still standing, still sailing. In a recent interview, he said, "I don't think of myself as a TV star anymore. I'm just a man with a boat, still fishing, still alive." That line, like many of Paul's, is unadorned and sincere. No embellishment, just truth. And perhaps that's what keeps fans coming back, year after year. He doesn't pretend to be perfect, he just shows up. The sea has been both cradle and crucible for Paul Hebert. It gave him a name, took his father, exposed his flaws, and remains his only constant. In every storm he has faced, legal, emotional, or reputational, Paul has returned to the water. Not because it's easy, but because it's the only place that still makes sense. His story is not a fairy tale or a cautionary tale. It's a human one. Flawed, enduring, sometimes silent, but still in motion. For Paul Hebert, the ocean is no longer just a place to work. It's home, refuge, and perhaps the only witness left to the man he truly is. And when the day comes when he can no longer fish, Paul will have already left a legacy, not just as a TV personality, but as one of the last true fishermen of a fading era. One who stayed the course no matter what. Still, Paul found purpose in the work. He focused more on teaching younger fishermen and helping people experience the ocean through his charter business. Wicked Tuna Charters became not just a source of income, but a therapeutic outlet. His way of reconnecting with the sea on his own terms. Unlike the competitive frenzy of Wicked Tuna, charters allowed Paul to slow down, share stories, and reflect. Many guests who joined his charters noted his generosity of spirit and encyclopedic knowledge of marine life and boat mechanics. Away from the pressure of TV cameras, Paul rediscovered joy in the basics: reading the water, watching the horizon, and hearing the line scream when a giant took the bait. Over the years, Paul's relationship with other captains on the show also evolved. Early seasons were marked by rivalries, especially with captains like Dave Carrero. But as the years passed, a quiet respect developed among the crews. They had all faced the same storms, both literal and figurative. They had all lost friends, struggled with quotas, and fought for paychecks in an industry that offers no guarantees. The bonds formed at sea, however strained at times, often outlast the petty conflicts of competition. Today, Paul Hebert remains a vital part of the Wicked Tuna legacy, even if his role has changed. While no longer the most outspoken or dominant screen presence, his quiet resilience speaks volumes. His story is not just about fishing, it's about survival, humility, and the cost of authenticity in a world obsessed with performance. Younger viewers may not remember the highs of his early seasons, but longtime fans know the depth of his journey. He has become a symbol of the old ways, of fishing not for fame, but for food, family, and fulfillment. Paul Hebert is not perfect. He has made serious mistakes and paid for them. He has lost more than most, carried grief few can imagine, and continues to live a life of isolation. But he also shows a kind of strength many overlook. The courage to keep going, to wake up, sail out, and do what he knows best even when the cameras turn away. His story isn't about television, fame, or even fish. It's about surviving after everything else is gone. He doesn't ask to be forgiven or loved. He simply wants to be himself, a man alone with the sea. If this story moved you or reminded you of someone fighting their own silent battle, drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you're into raw, real-life stories about the people behind the headlines, consider subscribing.